Correct. Andrew Abramson on the phone. He is the NFL and Dolphins reporter for the Palm Beach Post. Andrew, again, welcome to the show. And what do you? Why don't you ask him instead of asking me? He's the Dolphins expert.
Yeah, straight out. Are the Dolphins a serious contender to win that division this year?
I mean, serious. Look, I still think New England is the favorite. Do I think this is the best shot the Dolphins have had in a while? I do. First of all, I think that the Dolphins got better. Adding in Ndamukong Suh, Ryan Tannehill is getting better. I don't think he's quite there yet, but he's getting better. I like the receivers they put around him. And you can't overlook the fact that not only is Tom Brady potentially out 4 games, but when he comes back, he could be rusty. I mean, I know last year the Patriots started 2-2, but Brady's not coming back till week 5. He's going to be going up against the Colts in that comeback game. I think the Dolphins could win this division, but, it's hard for me to predict them when they haven't won a playoff game in 15 years, haven't even been to the playoffs since 2008. But I will say there's a different vibe around the Dolphins this year, and, I really do think they have a shot.
Andrew, the word I'm hearing all the time, and this is shocking to me, is the offensive line could be one of the best in the NFL. And I say I'm shocked because 2 years ago it was the biggest toxic waste dump in the entire NFL. Am I right to believe that this is one of the great aspects of this team is its offensive line?
No, I mean, you said offensive line?
Yeah.
No, I don't know who's saying that because, I mean, that's still, to me, the biggest weakness of this team. I think it's better than it was. The defensive line certainly, I think, is now one of the better in the NFL with Sue, Cam Wake. The offensive line, the problem is their top player, their left tackle, Brandon Albert, got hurt last year against Detroit. ACL, MCL, nasty tear. He's just starting to come back a little bit now. They're not even sure if he's going to be back for the season opener. If he is, I think they should be okay. They got a lot of questions at guard. They got Juwan James, a second-year player, right tackle, Mike Pouncey at center, but there's a lot of unproven guards right now. So the offensive line, while it's not the disaster that it was 2 years ago when they gave up the league-high sacks, it's still, to me, one of the bigger question marks of this team.
Well, yeah. I'll never pay attention to people who told me that. That's why I ask you, because you know a lot more than I do, or those that told me that, because I wondered about that. That was why I was shocked about it, because we knew that with the signing of Sue that the defensive line certainly has got to be shored up. In regard to the question that I will repeat the question less ask you, is Tannehill ready to move up into the elite quarterback class?
I don't know if he's ready to go up to elite quarterback yet. I think he's good. I like what I'm seeing from him. The problems he had last year, some deep ball accuracy issues, pocket presence. I still have a lot of questions about that. But what the Dolphins did, first of all, they made him their franchise quarterback, and that's just how the NFL is right now. There's really no other options out there. I mean, who are they going to get? It's not like there's a bunch of free agent quarterbacks available, and they're not bad enough to get a top pick in the draft. So I think they decided we like Ryan Tannehill. We're going to commit to him. We're going to pay him a lot of money. He's our guy. But what they're doing, which is really smart, building the offense around him. What they've done is they find the Dolphins were one of the smallest teams in the league last year in terms of receivers and tight end. Now they've got some big bodies. They got Jordan Cameron, 6'5" tight end. They drafted Devontae Parker, 6'3" receiver. They're getting some red zone threats. They're getting guys with range, so Tannehill doesn't have to throw a perfect ball. He can be a little bit off, and the guys that can actually get the ball, because they did not have guys before that were fighting for that football. So I think it's a good match for Ryan Tannehill, this new group of receivers. They brought in the veteran Greg Jennings. They got Kenny Stills from New Orleans. But I do think he's improving, and I think you're seeing the leadership qualities starting to come out, especially because it's a very young group of receivers. Except for Jennings, every Dolphins main receivers are going to be counting on this year. Their top receivers are all 22 years or younger. Very talented but young group. So Tannehill's becoming their leader, and I expect pretty good things out of him this year.
He's Andrew Abramson of the Palm Beach Post, and all our guests are brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. Andrew, there's quite a dichotomy on this team, it seems to me. They've got some eye-opening talent. Ndamukong Suh, Lamar Miller is one of the better running backs in the league. Tannehill is really moving up the ladder. But then there are some eye-opening holes as well, glaring holes. You mentioned the offensive line at guard. And then, I mean, if you look at their linebackers and their cornerbacks, that defensive line better put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, because the linebackers and the defensive backs, they seem to be lacking, yes?
Well, you're right in a sense, especially at linebacker. I thought they were going to upgrade a middle linebacker this offseason, whether it was through free agency or the draft, and they didn't. I really do think they're banking on having such a strong defensive line that it will mask deficiencies at linebacker. The secondary does have some talent. I mean, Brent Grimes, starting cornerback, he's made the Pro Bowl the last 2 years. He's getting a little older, 32, but he is a two-time Pro Bowler. And Rashad Jones, their strong safety, I think is one of the most underrated safeties in the league. I think he should have been a Pro Bowler last year, but he was suspended for the first 4 games of the season last year, a drug suspension. But when he came back, he actually had a really good year. They do have some question marks at the other safety spot. Louis Delmas has been hurt a lot. And then they're relying on a third-year cornerback, Jamar Taylor, a lot of potential, but he's been injury-prone. So some holes, you're right, but I think they really are counting on that defensive line getting to the quarterback and helping them out, because if that defensive line doesn't do it, then I think you're right. I don't think the linebackers and secondary are quite good enough to get it done.
Andrew, do you think this is a make-or-break year for the head coach, Joe Philbin?
I mean, I think it has to be. I mean, do you keep bringing a guy back that doesn't make the playoffs? I think a lot of people were surprised he came back this year. And I think the reason they brought him back this year, they put Mike Tannenbaum in charge of the team now, the former Jets GM. He is now running the team as the vice president over the GM and coach. I think they wanted Tannenbaum to come in, give him a year with Joe Philbin and with Dennis Hickey, the GM, see if they can get it done, let him evaluate the organization, and then if he's not satisfied, I think they clean house after the season. If they don't make the playoffs, Tannenbaum brings in his guys. One guy I keep thinking, Eric Mangini, he's kind of on his way back up. San Francisco defensive coordinator right now. Good buddies with Tannenbaum. But, I think it is. I think Joe Philbin has to make the playoffs. I mean, maybe if they win 10 games and, they don't make it, they consider bringing him back. But at some point, you've got to show some progress. And this is a team, like I said, that just hasn't. We think of the great Dolphins of the past, and it's been a really, really bleak decade and a half in Miami.
I was going to say, my memory is not so good that I actually remember when the Dolphins were good. Andrew, let's circle back, though. What we're talking about at the very beginning. You mentioned the Patriots, and you said, let's assume for the moment that Brady is going to be suspended for 4 games. That here is a real opening for the Dolphins. Even though the Buffalo Bills have improved, I don't think much of the Jets. I don't know whether you do or not. But I think that the Patriots also are not as good as they were last year, even with Brady back. And I wonder how you look at the overall division, because the Dolphins got to play 6 games against those teams.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, New England, although I wonder with Bill Belichick, I got to imagine they're going to be pretty pissed with everything that's happening. So part of me thinks Belichick is just going to figure it out, mad scientist, do something to get it done. But you're right. I mean, obviously their secondary took the hit. I think New England actually has the worst defensive line in the division, but it's a division full of good, strong defensive lines. I do like, after the Dolphins, I like Buffalo, the next best team. To me, Buffalo's only major weakness is they don't have a quarterback. And, if somehow Matt Castle or E.J. Manuel could at least be, a little above average, then I think they would also have a shot, because they have such a good defensive front. And I just don't think the Jets have all the pieces there. Their defensive line just took a little hit recently. So, I think the Dolphins have to be the team that's going to do it if the New England doesn't do it. But the Dolphins have a really weird schedule this year, where because they're renovating the stadium, they have a bunch of road games in the beginning of the year and a bunch of home games at the end. And normally you'd say, okay, that's a good thing for the Dolphins. But they actually have, it's easy road teams in the beginning. They got the Redskins, they got the Jaguars. Then they play the Jets in London. Then at the end of the season, they got this brutal schedule down the stretch where they have to play at home against the Ravens and the Giants. Then they go to San Diego. Then they finish against the Colts and Patriots. So my thing is, if the Dolphins really want to make the playoffs, I think they have to get out to a hot start. I think they got to start 5-1, maybe 4-2 at the worst, or else they're going to put a ton of pressure on themselves to win at the end of the season against really good teams. And they've been in that position the last 2 years, and they have failed. So I think they got to get out to a hot start, and I think that means these young receivers, these new receivers, have to gel quickly and the offensive line has to be healthy.
Great information, great opinions, Andrew. 2 final questions real quick. Your Twitter handle, how we follow you on the Palm Beach Post, and the second question is, do you live on the east side or the west side of 95?
Abramson, PBP for Palm Beach Post. I live east. I'm an east guy. I have to see water from where I live. You know, that's Florida. That's real.
Yeah. You're my man now, because if you live on the west side, I go, man, I don't want to live over there.
Yeah, what's the point? You might as well live in Orlando or something.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Have a good one.